Hi, and welcome to SodaSong. In this video I'd like to demonstrate how to use the SoClassic Photoshop action, from loading the action set to tweaking the final look. Hopefully you'll find something useful along the way. Let's start by loading the action file into Photoshop. If you don't have it yet, the download link is available in the description below. Now, head over to the window menu and select Actions. Once the Actions panel appears, click the menu icon in the top right corner. Choose Load Actions, and navigate to where you saved the action pack. Now, open the Assets folder. Select the action file, then click Open. And there you go, the action is now loaded into the panel. These are the actions we'll be working with later. For now, let's set the panel aside. Now, let's open the photo we'll be working on. Before we run the action, there are a few important settings we need to check. Let's start with the image mode. Go to the image menu, choose mode, and make sure your photo is set to RGB color. Also, confirm that it's set to 8 bits per channel. Now, let's check the image size settings. Go back to the image menu, then click on Image Size. Here, we want to make sure the photo's dimensions fall within the recommended range. For optimal results, set the width between 1500 and 4000 pixels. The same goes for the height, it should also be between 1500 and 4000 pixels. Next, let's take a look at the resolution. The recommended range is between 72 and 300 pixels per inch. Higher resolution means more detail, but it may also take longer to process. For this demo, we'll go with 200 pixels per inch. Once everything is set up properly, go ahead and click OK. Next, let's check a couple of settings to make sure the layer structure stays organized during the action process. First, go to the window menu, then choose Adjustments. Once the panel appears, click the icon in the top right corner to open its menu. There are two settings we need to confirm here. The first one is Add Mask by default. This should be selected. Right below that, you'll see Clip to Layer. Make sure there's no check mark beside it. Both settings should be exactly as described. Once you're all set, go ahead and minimize the panel. Now, let's review the settings in the Layer panel options. Go to the window menu, then select Layers to open the Layers panel. Once it shows up, click the icon in the top right corner of the panel, then choose Panel Options from the drop-down list. There are two settings we need to double-check here. First, look for Use Default Masks on Fill Layers. This option should be enabled, make sure it's checked. Next, navigate to Add Copy to Copied Layers and Groups. This one should also be checked. Once both settings are in place, you can go ahead and dock the panel to the sidebar. Finally, let's make sure your image is flattened with a proper background layer. Start by checking the Layers panel. As you can see here, even if your photo only has a single layer like this, we still need to ensure it's properly set as a background layer. To confirm this, go to the Layer menu, then look for the Flatten Image option. If this option is still clickable like this, it means the current layer isn't recognized as a proper flat background. In this case, simply click Flatten Image to fix it. This step also applies if your image has multiple layers. Once you've done that, let's double-check. Go back to the Layer menu, and take another look at the Flatten Image. Perfect, it's now grayed out. Your photo is properly flattened and ready to go. Let's start by defining the main object, the part of the image that should be the primary focus. To do this, we'll create a selection directly over the object. Head over to the Layers panel. Here, we'll create a new layer above the background layer. Before you proceed, here's an important reminder. Avoid creating the layer manually. Doing so could cause issues during the action process, especially if there are typos in the layer name or incorrect settings. Instead, open the Actions panel. Select Step 1, Create Selection Layer, then click Play to run it. Once the action is complete, a notification will appear. Click Stop to close it. Now take a look at the Layers panel. You should see a new layer named Selection placed above the background layer. This is where you'll create the selection. You're free to use any selection tool you're most comfortable with, such as the lasso tool, pen tool, brush tool, or any other method you prefer. Likewise, feel free to use any color you like. Now make sure the selection layer is selected. Set both opacity and fill to 100%. Also, ensure the blending mode is set to normal. Once everything is set, go ahead and create your selection. To save time in this demo, I'll be using a selection I've prepared earlier. Now, the selection is in place, and the action will recognize this shape as a marker. It indicates that the object underneath is the main subject to be processed. Let's go back to the Actions panel. Select Step 2, Render Effects, then hit the play button to run it. Once the action is complete, a notification will pop up like this. Click Stop to close it. And just like that, the effect has been successfully applied, and it's ready for you to explore. Now, let's take a look at the Layers panel. There's now a stack of layers, all nicely organized. It's time to play around with the layers and customize the overall look. So now, we've got a bunch of layers nicely stacked in the Layers panel. At the top, you'll find the Color and Tone group. It contains a range of preset colors to choose from, along with tools to adjust brightness, contrast, and saturation. Right below that, there's a stack of layers with isolated shadow and highlight areas. Each one offers a different visual effect. Now, let's move on to the Handwritten group. It contains several ready-to-use handwriting elements. You can pick your favorites, or create your own if you prefer. If you want to add a bit of chaos, there are paint splatters to go. You can also use overlay textures and grunge brushstrokes to add an extra artistic flair to your piece. But for now, let's start by playing around with the background color. Here, you have several background color options to choose from. Feel free to pick a base color that best matches your style. For this demo, I'll be using a sepia tone. Click this thumbnail to adjust the color so it aligns better with your preferences. Alternatively, you can use the hue control to fine-tune the color tone with more precision. Now, let's move on to the sketch base. To clear up the workspace, I'll temporarily hide some of the layers above except for Color and Tone, so we can use it as a reference. Here, you'll find several sketch layers. You don't need to use all of them, just pick the ones that work for you and ignore the rest. Feel free to adjust the opacity to control the intensity. Once you're done, go ahead and minimize the group. Next, we'll clean up the background by masking out any unwanted objects. To do this, first select the sketch base layer, then click on its Layer Mask thumbnail. Now, activate the Brush tool and set the foreground color. Use black to hide parts of the image. And use white to reveal them. If you're not sure how to use Layer Mask, check out the tutorial video linked in the description below. Now, let's start masking things out. First, make sure you're using a black brush, then double-check that the mask on the sketch base layer is selected. Once you're ready, go ahead and brush over the areas you want to hide. The background looks much cleaner now, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let's move forward to the main focus. Inside this group, you'll find a collection of isolated graphic elements. These elements are designed to help stylize and enhance your main subject. Select the one you'd like to use, then adjust its opacity to control the intensity. You can also experiment with the blending mode to achieve the visual effect you're going for. Let's take a moment to play around with the elements here and see what works best.
Was that all you needed from me? Satisfied, humiliated by its own scheme.
If you'd like to reveal the original photo, simply select the MF original photo layer, then highlight its layer mask. Activate the brush tool, and choose a soft brush. Set the brush opacity to around 2 to 10%, and make sure your foreground color is set to white. Then, gently brush over the areas you'd like to reveal. Personally, I think it already looks great. Let's take a look at the stack of yellow layers above. There are 3 engraving options here, each with a different line density. The first one is the tightest, the second has a bit more spacing, and the third is the most spaced out. For now, I'll go with the first option. I think it works best with this photo. The next step is to apply the engraving texture only to the main subject. To do that, we'll hide any unwanted parts of the texture that fall outside the subject area. Let's start by defining the area we want to hide. First, go to the selection layer. Hold down Command on Mac or Control on Windows, and click its thumbnail to load the selection. We've now got an active selection outline. Next, invert the selection by pressing Command-Shift-I on Mac or Control-Shift-I on Windows. Now, let's go back to the engraving layer. Make sure the layer mask is selected. Once that's confirmed, fill the selection with black. Go ahead and deselect by pressing Command-D on Mac or Control-D on Windows. To finish up, I'll bump up the opacity a bit, just to make the engraving texture stand out a little more. The main subject totally pops now, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. Now it's time to bring in some grunge elements to add a more artistic touch. You've got texture layers, handwritten notes, paint splatters, and brush strokes to play with. So go ahead, explore a bit and have some fun with it. And there it is. We've mixed in some grunge accents, and the result gives us a more textured and artistic look. It really adds depth and character to the whole image. Now, let's move up. Here, you'll find a stack of layers that contains isolated shadow and highlight areas. For now, I'll start with the Boost Highlights layer to enhance the isolated lighter areas. Simply increase its opacity to reveal the effect. You can also use the layer mask to hide any parts you don't want. Let's dive in and see how it turns out. I think this looks much better now, so let's move on to the next step. Here, you can choose any color preset you like and fine-tune the tonality to achieve the look you're aiming for. Simply select the color mood you want to use, then adjust the opacity to control its intensity. Feel free to experiment with blending modes as well. You can also tweak the brightness, contrast, and saturation settings to find the best look for your style. Personally, I'm happy with how it looks for now. Let's continue with the next step and keep making progress. We've now reached the final stage of this tutorial. Here, we'll run the optional action to sharpen the image. Just a quick reminder, once the sharpening is applied, you won't be able to reposition, resize, or remove any elements in the image. So, make sure your layout is completely finalized before moving forward. When you're ready, go ahead and open the Actions panel. Select Step 3, Sharpen Image Action, then click the play button to run it. When the notification pops up, simply click Stop to close it. Now, take a look at the Layers panel. You'll see a new layer named Sharpening. This layer contains a high-pass filter that gives the image a sharpening effect. Just click on the small arrow icon to the right of the layer to show or hide this filter. Let's fine-tune the filter settings to find the best sharpening result. Double-click on the high-pass label to open the filter panel. Now, head over to the radius setting. Feel free to experiment with different values, anywhere between 1 to 7 is a good place to start. As you can see here, I've already found a value that works well for this image. Once you're happy with the result, click OK to close the panel. Now, go back to the sharpening layer and open the blending mode options. You can choose between overlay, soft light, hard light, or vivid light. I'm going with vivid light since it gives the strongest sharpening effect. Finally, adjust the opacity to control the sharpening intensity. For this image, I'll increase it a little to help the details pop. The final result now looks sharper and more refined. At this stage, if you'd like to rework the layout or graphics, you'll need to delete the existing sharpening layer. Then, once you've finished making changes, you can start the sharpening process from the beginning by running the Step 3 action again. If you want to learn more about sharpening with the high-pass filter, there's another tutorial video that you might find interesting. Check out the link in the description below. One more thing to keep in mind, the customizations I made here are not strict rules you have to follow. Feel free to explore, experiment, and take things in your creative vision. Let's take a look at the before and after from this demo. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your support, and I hope this video was inspiring.